Good morning and welcome to All Faiths Unitarian Congregation Sunday service. Today is Sunday, February 7th. I'm the Rev CJ McGregor. I serve this congregation as its minister and will be leading the service today. Today is our first Sunday of having services open to 20 people by reservations. So we have people in our seats today. And next Sunday's service will be live streamed only as we celebrate All Faith's 20th anniversary and our Founders Day. The message will be delivered by the Reverend Dr. Wayne Robinson. If you would like to reserve a seat for the services on February 21st, please contact Regina Kilmartin in our office. Here at All Faiths, you will find a diverse and spiritual, inclusive community where we welcome all people with many beliefs. You can bring your whole self, your full identity, your questioning mind, and your expansive heart. At All Faiths, we have more than one way of experiencing the world and understanding the sacred. And we want you to know that no matter who you are, where you are on your spiritual journey, and no matter whom you love, you are always welcome here. I have a few announcements this morning. There's a new date for the racial justice meeting every month. It's on the second Tuesday of the month, and February 9th at 10 o'clock, there will be a Zoom meeting. We have ended our Teaching Tuesdays, except for two last presentations that we will notify you about, but we are now meeting at 10 o'clock on Wednesdays on Zoom, and it's called the 10 o'clock Scholar. This Wednesday, we'll be discussing the historical Jesus. Hearts for the Homeless meeting is this Thursday, February 11th at 2 o'clock via Zoom, so I guess that's canceled. There will not be a Hearts for the Homeless meeting this Thursday. Next Sunday, there's a special collection for our contribution to the Unitarian Universalist Association. As a member of the Unitarian Universalist Association, each congregation commits funds to the association, and we will be collecting to make that contribution next Sunday. So please mail your checks and write UUA on the lower left corner. Now let us sing hymn number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. rejoice and come in.
Please join the words printed in your order of service as I light our chalice. As we light our chalice today, let us remember that we are a part of a great community of faith. May this dancing flame inspire us to fill our lives with the Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, justice, and truth. It is now time for our youth to join Mary Corrigan, our religious education director, for their lesson this morning on Zoom.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
When we are together, we share our joys and sorrows that we have felt with the congregation. And as we've lived apart for these past many months, we still have an opportunity to share our joys and sorrows with one another. If you have a joy and sorrow that you would like to share, please make sure that you get it to me, and I'll be glad to share it with the congregation. We do have a few this morning. Congratulations to Ainsley Babcock, who won a few awards at her dance competition. We ask that you keep Vicki Conrad in your thoughts as she has discovered a melanoma and is being evaluated. And congratulations to Lori Babcock, who was recently accepted to a writing program at Vermont College of Fine Arts. So make sure you wish her congratulations. Happy birthday today to Kendra Maroon. And Chris Stotler would like us to keep his mother in our thoughts as she turns 102 this week. Wow. Dottie Mayall would like to thank everyone who offered her support and cards, and she wants everyone to know that she is doing better and back driving. In fact, she drove herself here today. Also, let's keep the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken and in our hearts, and think of those who are alone and send them messages, calls, and cards of love. And we care for all of you who have joys and sorrows this morning. Please join in singing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. Let us turn our minds and our hearts to our service this morning and share a few moments of silence. In this quiet hour, may our spirits be renewed. In this gathering of friends, may we be ready to extend ourselves to those in need, and with trust to receive the hand that is offered. In this community, in this congregation of ideals, may we remember the principles that guide us and reflect upon those things that give meaning to our lives, renewing our dedication to serve the highest that we know. In this time of worship, may our minds be open to a new truth, our hearts be receptive to love, and as we give thanks for this life, we are blessed to share. It is good to be together.
Standing in line, walking time, waiting for the welfare line, 'cause they can't buy a job. The man in the silk suit hurries by as he catches the police hands. Just for fun, he says, get a job. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. Oh, but don't you believe that? Say, hey, little boy, you can't go where the others go, 'cause you don't look like they do. I said, hey, old man, how can you stand to think that way? Did you really think about it before you made the rules? He said, son, that's just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. Ah, but don't you believe that? Pass the law in 64 to give those who ain't got a little more, but it only goes so far. 'Cause the law don't change another's mind when all it sees at the higher time is a line on the color bar. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. Ah, but don't you believe that?
Our reading this morning is titled, well, it is Psalm 126 as adapted by Daniel Berrigan. When the Spirit struck us free, we could scarcely believe it. For every joy where we were free, where we wrapped in a dream of freedom, our mouths filled with laughter, our tongues with pure joy. And the oppressors were awestruck. What marvels the Lord works for them. Like a torrent and flood, our people streamed out. Locks, bars, ghettos, cages, cuffs, a nightmare scattered. We trod the long furrow, half drunk with joy, staggering the golden sheaves in our own arms. And so ends the reading. Let us join now in singing hymn number 93. The words are printed in your order of service.
To mercy, pity, peace, and love, all pray in their distress, and to those virtues of delight return their thankfulness, return their thankfulness. For mercy has a human heart, and pity a human face, and love the human form divine, and peace the human dress, and peace the human dress. Then every one of every clime that prays in deep distress, praise to the human form divine, love, mercy, pity, peace, love, mercy, pity, peace.
You all know that I keep a pencil next to my hymnal, and maybe you remember that I use that pencil to mark hymns that we will never sing again. And Joseph, that may be one of them. So if you're getting your news these days from MSNBC, and you watch the show Morning Joe, anybody watch that? You'll know that as a part of celebrating February as Black History Month, the hosts ask their guests and their commentators to choose an African American, or tell people about an African American that has inspired them, and why they have inspired them. And many names came to my mind when I asked myself this question: Maya Angelou, Martin Luther King Jr., Langston Hughes, Barack Obama, and others. But there was one other person who has inspired me, and that is the Reverend Mark Morrison Reed, a Unitarian minister. I had the pleasure of spending 3 days with Reed a couple of years ago at a minister's retreat, and it changed my time with him, changed my ministry. And like I said, we met at a minister's retreat, and the night before, the last day of any minister's retreat, someone does an odyssey. Not unlike the odyssey that we do here at All Faiths when I interview a member of the congregation and ask them to tell us their story. So this odyssey allows the minister to tell their story. And once Mark Morrison Reed told his story, I was hooked. I couldn't get enough of his writing. I watched his blog videos. And I recently reread his book, Black Pioneers. And he tells stories in this book of his black family arriving in a white Unitarian church in the 1960s. And the book chronicles the lives of black pioneers in a white denomination. And Reed has a unique perspective as being part of the only black family to join the Chicago Unitarian congregation, as I said. And I also recently read his book titled Darkening Doorways. And in this book he writes, I saw so few of my hue that I could not help but be conscious of the only other African American in the children's choir. And Reed described his experiences as a person of color entering a congregation of white people. And he says it wasn't until late in the 20th century that Unitarians became uncomfortable with the absence of people of color in their congregations. It wasn't until the late 20th century when Unitarians became uncomfortable with the absence of people of color in their congregations. Our history in welcoming people of color into our congregations is not one of honor. Reed describes the history as a tale of systematic paternalism and prejudice-induced failure of vision, of squandered opportunities, and of good intentions turned into tragedy more often than triumph. And our Unitarian Universalist Black history is shameful, disturbing, and enraging. And a history that no one cared about, researched, or tried to understand. And this begs us to ask the question, why was it left out? And I wonder, did we assume that Unitarians and Universalists were always so open and welcome to African Americans? Reed asks, why in a denomination that revels in the hero worship of Benjamin Rush, Thomas Jefferson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Lydia Child, P.T. Barnum, Susan B. Anthony, and Albert Schweitzer, to invoke a few, did we ignore our Black forebears? Why this silence? And I ask, could it be that religious liberalism as an icon of enlightened progressivism simply could not survive a reckoning with this truth? And I've concluded that our history never talked about African Americans because even within a liberal religious faith, African Americans were invisible. They were not seen as having worth the visibility and part of our story. In order for us to claim our place on the right side of this issue today, we need to reckon with that past. So here we go. The American Unitarian Association was founded on my birthday, actually, in 1825. And they weren't concerned whether people joined or not. They just simply wanted to get the good news of Unitarianism or Unitarian ideas out via pamphlets. I think I said that I hope I said that the American Unitarian Association was founded in 1825, not the Unitarian Universalist Association. Unitarians at this time were the elite, the educated, the wealthy, and I'm sorry to say, prejudiced. There was no concern for a relationship with people and communities of color. And one of the most radical Unitarian ministers at the time, Theodore Parker, once wrote, remember, one of the most radical Unitarian ministers at the time, he wrote, an Anglo-Saxon with common sense does not like the Africanization of America. He wishes the superior race to multiply rather than the inferior race. This was a radical Unitarian minister. And would you believe that Theodore Parker was also an abolitionist? So, as a card-carrying Unitarian, he believed that African Americans should be free, but he also believed that they should be kept down as an inferior race. And many Unitarians did not support abolition, reluctant to take a stand because of their wealth from the cotton business. And they needed the support of southern states, southern cotton growers, to keep their wealth. And many supported slavery. Some supported the return of blacks to Africa. And those ministers condemning slavery were denounced as traitors. These are Unitarians. And so it seems for Unitarians of that time, African Americans had no rights, remained property, not fully human, and had no story. But Mark Morrison Reed tells us the Unitarian Universalist Church and others like it will remain largely segregated until there is a twofold transformation. One in society, the other within the church. First, on a societal level, it is essential that Unitarian Universalists and other liberal religionists never forget the political and economic freedoms are the mainstay of intellectual freedom and that any inequities and injustice subsequently undermine all freedom. And this realization presses us to take serious the cliche that until all of us are free, none of us is truly free. It is a moral imperative that we commit ourselves to the establishment of a just society. And the result of this endeavor will be the evolution of a society potentially more responsive to Unitarian Universalist values. And second, within the liberal church, within our congregations, the transformation would begin with the strengthening of our spirituality through an enriched story. A story that exposes our commitment to freedom, shakes up our class bias, sensitizes us to the needs of others, strengthens our sense of human connections, and finally inspires us to struggle with others for freedom, to join others and walk beside others for freedom. There were African Americans in our history that changed our denomination. Courageously, they promoted the free church and liberal religion. And it is good, as we celebrate Black History Month, that we get to know a few of these people, to honor these people and honor their stories. While the creation of Black Lives Unitarian Universalists, which is an organization within our denomination, might seem to be a novel development in the history of both Black and liberal religion, African Americans have engaged with and been key figures in American religious liberalism since the 18th century. Gloucester Dalton, a freed slave, was a founding member of the first Universalist church in the United States. A Black man was the founder of the first Universalist church in the United States in 1785. Amy Scott, a free Black woman, was likewise a founding member of the first First Universalist Society in Philadelphia in 1790. And Egbert Ethelred Brown founded a Unitarian congregation in Jamaica in 1908 and then moved to Harlem, where he assembled the Harlem Unitarian Church in 1920. And in 1947, Louis McGee founded the Free Religious Fellowship in Chicago, a Unitarian Universalist congregation that still exists. And along with these pioneers, Black members of the denomination founded the Black Unitarian Universalist Caucus in the late 1960s, in an attempt to make our denomination more responsive to the demands of the Black Power movement. While that organization lasted just 6 years, it provided a model for contemporary Black UU movements. For years, our Unitarian Universalist communities were plagued with fear and aversion to talking about race. And for years, our efforts to promote racial justice went underground, channeled into the safer code word of urban ministry. And little by little, as Unitarian Universalists, we've gotten our courage back. And this is a long story for another day, but suffice it to say, it's been hard for everyone in our movement. But slowly we've learned that we really can talk about what happened. And in this month of Black History, we should be talking about what happened in our Unitarian Universalist history. The hope, the resolve, the disappointments, the failures. And we are still learning from our past and learning that the past doesn't have to control us. And the beginning of community is truth-telling. The beginning of community is truth-telling. And this is the promise and challenge of the Black Lives Matter movement. As long as we fail to hear people trying to be heard, as long as we stay blind to the stories of those around us, including tragic ones, as long as we stay silent about institutional bias and perversion, our days as Unitarian Universalists are numbered. If our faith is going to continue to be a vital force in our life, in the life of our community, in our world, we need to stand up as we are able and listen. The right time is always now, lest we miss the moment and are forced to receive the pathetic words, "Too late." Looking back, the white Unitarian Universalist minister David Park says, "I have never felt prouder of my church than I did on May the 26th in 1968, when our overwhelmingly white denomination said yes to its black minority. Yes, we said, we embrace you as Unitarian Universalists. Yes, we stand with you in your pain and rage as black Americans. Yes, we accept your vision of a nation and a denomination led out of the bondage, though out of bondage by those having a direct experience of oppression. Yes, we trust you with our money. Yes, we know that other programs will suffer, but we are willing to do with less because you have done with less for so long." He continues, "When I ask, have Unitarian Universalists, black and white together, stood so tall? Not in my lifetime, perhaps not ever." And I leave you this morning with the words of the Reverend Bill Sinkford. Sinkford was the first elected African American to the presidency of the Unitarian Universalist Association. He wrote, "In a faith community that is still predominantly white, the personal stories, the songs of Unitarian Universalists of African, Asian, Native American, and Latino descent can be drowned out by the dominant melody. The risk is that those stories will remain unheard and invisible, encouraging our faith to hear its song as the song of white people only." Unitarian Universalism is changing, and there are more persons of color and Latino adults in our pews. And thanks to the adoption and blended families, our religious education programs are a home to far more children whose lineage traces to Africa, Asia, South America, and the indigenous cultures of the United States. We are committed to transforming this faith into one that is truly anti-oppressive and multicultural. And the stories in this pamphlet that Bill Sinkford created, he put out a pamphlet of the faith journeys of African Americans who have found a home in this great liberal faith. And we honor these stories with hope that the UU choir will include these voices, and as our Unitarian hymn tells us, lift every voice and sing. So may the light of reason, the comfort of kindness, the depth of a growing spiritual life, the outreach of action, and the acceptance of our own goodness and potential always be our inspiration and the source of our continuing gratitude to our founders and to those who have carried the torch that we hold high. May it be so. So if you're new, or if you've forgotten, or you're just coming back into the congregation after nearly a year, you'll remember that I like to tell a joke before the offertory because laughter makes you generous. That's a scientific fact. And so I do have one for you this morning, but before I share that with you, I'd like to thank all of you for your generosity in helping us maintain our staff, our programs, and live our mission in our community. And if you're listening to this message from afar, we need your support as well. You can make a donation by going to our website or mailing your donation to the congregation's office. That information is below the video. So the Buddhist approached the hot dog vendor and asked, "Make me one with everything." That's part of the joke. And when he received his hot dog, he handed the vendor a $20 bill and waited and waited and waited until he had run out of patience. "What about my change?" the Buddha said, and the hot dog vendor smiled. "Change comes from within." The morning offering will now be given and received.
There's too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Yeah. Father, Father, we don't need your sky. See, war's not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Oh, picket lines, picket signs, don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see, oh, what's going on, what's going on, yeah, what's going on, oh, what's going on. Father, Father, everybody thinks we're wrong. I hope they judge us simply 'cause our hair is long. I know we've got to find a way to some understanding here today. Oh, picket lines and picket signs don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see, oh, what's going on, what's going on, yeah, what's going on. What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? What's going on?
Before I offer our closing words, I want to sneak a short announcement in. On February 9th, which is a Tuesday, this Tuesday, at 1 o'clock, Matt Wallace from the County Homeless Street Outreach will be offering a presentation to the congregation, and we'll be able to ask questions. So watch your email for the Zoom link, and that again is on Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And now may we go forth from this community of faith in the knowledge of love and in the vision of hope. And in our going, may we be blessed with all good things on this day and forevermore, and reach out for freedom for everyone. Blessed be. Before we extinguish our chalice, I'd like to offer appreciation. We thank Joseph Brauer for his gift of music and voice, and Regina and for all she does. She's our camera person, director, and she has a lot to do with the order of service. And thank you to Ed Elrod on sound. And we appreciate all of you for joining us this morning, and all of you for joining us this morning. It is good to be connected in any way we can. Please join in the words printed in your order of service as I extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world.